Order at this time. Mr. Clerk, if we can have roll call, please.
Dominic.
Present.
Lyndon Johnson. Jackson. Lynn. Bowden.
Present.
Cawthorn. Gates. Watts. Middleton. Atkins. Chavez. Smith. Lewis Johnson.
Present. We do have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
Okay, if everybody can rise, we'll have the invocation by Commissioner Jim Smith, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Mike Middleton.
Heavenly Father, we come to you this morning to ask your blessings upon our work. Help us, Father, to always do the things that will be pleasing in your sight. And thank you, Father, for Jesus dying on the cross to save us from our sins. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Everyone, please place the flag. Veterans and active military members may have the option to give the brow salute during this and recite me the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on to our next item, which is agenda additions. I have no agenda additions. Mr. Clerk, do you have any?
No. We have none, sir.
Have not. So moving to our next item, citizens' comments. Citizens who wish to address the commission on any issue other than zoning, please fill out a comment card located in the chamber foyer and return to the president or the clerk of the commission. Individual comments are limited to 3 minutes. I think we have to have our comments first, but then you can make that motion. Okay, first one I have is Melvin Slack. Mr. Slack. How you doing today, Mr. Slack? Nice to see you. If you could give us your name, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
My name is Melvin Slack. First, giving all glory and giving all honor and giving all praise to my Lord and Savior, whose name is Jesus Christ. The reason I came and stood today is because of the Confederate flag monument you all talking about, as well as the streets y'all are talking about, and alcohol and liquor that we have already approved to be going 24 hours, 7 days a week. The only thing I have to say, because this is my last comment as a citizen, we sitting around here having all these meetings, talking about the Confederate monument, which ain't bothering nobody. We got people out here drinking, killing themselves coming from the club. But we approve this. We sit around here talking, discuss amongst each other about all the negative things, but we won't take care of the negative things. And I'll be honest with you, I'm fed up with it now. I've been nice as long as I could, but I'm fed up with it. The reason we want to approve alcohol and liquor is because most of us drink. We get drunk at downtown. We get drunk everywhere else. We're doing the same thing the citizens doing. I don't know how in the world we gonna expect citizens to do well if we can't do well. Alcohol and liquor, once again, is destroying our black people. It's destroying white people. It's destroying all races. But we won't open our eyes to see that. But we want to come together in different buildings and discuss what we done to be successful in Shreveport, which is nothing.
Mr. Slack, if you step back just a little and not talk right on that microphone.
Do this in jail.
You can step up a little closer than that. But
There you go, right
There you
there.
go.
There you go, good, right there. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Make a long story short, because I know I ain't got but 54 seconds. I'm just tired of all the bull. We need to be discussing what's going on in the city with all this violence and all this crime and all this drinking and driving and killing each other. And like I said, it ain't just a black thing, it's a black and a white thing. But we want to sit up here and get paid for stuff we're not even doing. We're getting paid for going to the streets, now not even going to the streets. Getting paid for having meetings and meetings being placed in places where we can travel down the road, but you come down Pines Road and see what you get. Cracks all in the road, one of the most elite areas in the city. And we can't get that done, but we want to be the chair, we want to be the president, we want to be the assistant this and assistant that. We ain't doing nothing. But like I say, this is my last comment as a citizen, because November is gonna be a change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slack. Appreciate your comments. I would just say that a lot of those are city issues, so you may want to talk to the city council. Bobby Edwards, Mr. Bobby Edwards. Got your name right today.
Thank you very much, sir.
Nice to see you. Please give your name. You got 3 minutes, sir.
All right, we'll make it short. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bobby Edwards. I reside at 4650 Lakeshore Drive in Shreveport, Louisiana, 71109. And I'm also with the Interfaith Together Louisiana. We want to thank the commissions for meeting and working with us around this issue of the ITEP. As we have said, Interfaith is not an anti-business, and we certainly appreciate the contributions made by them. We applaud Inferno and look forward to learning more about the company. But economic development is not only tax exemption. It is the investment in a skilled workforce, education, and repair and replacement of aging infrastructure and clean air. And as we have stated many times, our concern is the precedent you are setting by approving this application. In our mind, it sets the stage for larger companies seeking exemption to be granted. We are giving you 2 articles, and particularly, please note that in Rapides Parish, we are working with the Economical Development Group to develop standards for evaluation of ITEP application. I thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Appreciate your comments. Susan Caldwell, is Ms. Caldwell present? How you doing, Ms. Caldwell? Appreciate you being here today.
I'm all right. I appreciate y'all.
You have 3
listening
minutes.
To us. I just want to talk to you a little bit, piggybacking on what Mr. Edwards said about different forms of economic development. I want to talk to you again. We've come to you before about Project ACTS, which is another chance to succeed. It's modeled after similar efforts in Texas and Arizona that tie those in training to living wage employment with a career path and benefits. 81% of those entering Project Quest in San Antonio complete the program. Most participants worked in low-skill, low-wage jobs and were on some form of public assistance. They're now productive, tax-paying citizens making an average wage of $50,000 a year with benefits. For every dollar spent on participants in Quest, after 5 years, there is a $17 return on investment. Commissioners Chavez and Lynn have already visited Quest last year, and we would ask that all of you consider a site visit with us to see how San Antonio has prospered because of its investment in a skilled workforce. This also is a part of economic development, and I do have the articles for you that Mr. Edwards referred to.
Thank you so much. If you can give them to our clerk, she can hand them out. Our next comments will be by Willie Myers. Good morning, Good afternoon, Ms. Myers. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
You have 3 minutes.
I will not take the whole 3 minutes. We commend Commissioner Jackson for his efforts to create a housing trust fund. Our organization in Brooklyn created a similar program and has built 7,000 homes for the first-time home buyers. It completely turned around a neighborhood of abandoned buildings and vacant lots, making it a viable again. Quality, affordable housing is a great need in our community. Commissioners, we would like to sit with you and learn more about the details on how we might work with you to make this happen. This is economic development.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Allen, Organic. Mr. Organic. How are you doing today?
Mr. Dominic, doing fine, thank you.
You got 3 minutes, sir.
Allen Organic, President, Inferno Manufacturing, 420 Piermont Road, 71106. Dear Commission, eliminating industrial property tax exemptions has been suggested as a simple and very direct way to raise money in the short term at the local level. However, I urge you to maintain the ITEP. With the requested 5-year abatement, our tax due the parish over a 20-year period is $14,000. Without the abatement, $26,000. In other words, the tax would increase 90% without the abatement. There's a big change going on in federal tax law. We are all now starting to enjoy lower income tax deductions from our paychecks. But for business, the most significant change in federal tax law is unlimited and immediate expensing of capital investment, a big change from the prior limitation of $500,000. This change is providing a strong incentive for business to invest more and to invest more now. However, the cost imposed at the local level for converting cash to machinery on the shop floor is increasing by 90%. Then the since the local level is increasing our costs by 90% without an abatement, then the positive effects of the new pro-growth policy and the tax law will have been largely negated. It's like Uncle Sam is trying to help the system, but we decided to return the favor by shooting ourselves in the foot. Let me illustrate using our recent purchase of a machine for $480,000. If you consider that making the purchase saved us 40% on our federal tax return, then you can see that the way we look at this machine purchase really cost us only $288,000. In effect, we bought it at a 40% discount. Now, what does that cost look like when you factor in the property tax? In the far right section of the spreadsheet that I passed out the other day, we see that the total tax payments to all jurisdictions would be $105,000 over 20 years.
Mr. Organic, don't get too close to the mic. You're getting like Mr. Slack, just a little bit.
The present value of those payments is $85,000. So the cost of the $288,000 machine has increased by $85,000. The real cost of the machine is now $373,000, an increase of 30%. So what? Some might say. That's just the cost of business. Well, let's see. Let's compare the machine cost when we consider the reduced property tax rate coming with a 5-year exemption plus a 3-year extension at reduced rate. The present value of those taxes is now $27,000, so the cost of the machine is now $316,000. Businesses react to change. We're always deciding between this way or that way. There are rarely perfect answers, so we are always looking at the difference to help us make decisions. So let's focus on the net change. With a maximum exemption, the cost for the machine is $316,000. With no exemption, the cost is $373,000. The total cost now 18% higher. Capital investment is our means of production. Capital is the lifeblood.
Your time has expired, Mr.
Move
Organic.
to extend.
Second.
Thank you. Ooh.
Okay, we got a motion to extend. We're going to vote on this. Remember, we have rules. We're supposed to speak 3 minutes for public comments. Have a motion to extend.
That's an objection.
Yeah, well, we got to vote on it.
I'm saying somebody objected.
I don't know. Did anybody object?
I didn't hear anybody object.
All right, we're going to vote on it. Please vote.
Hit it once. It's lit up. But,
Okay, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Capital investment is our means of production. Capital is the lifeblood of manufacturing. Every manufacturing business in Caddo is going to be looking at the vote today. When they see that there's an 18% increase in the cost for capital, they are not going to shrug their shoulders and say, well, that's just the cost of doing business. A business facing an 18% increase in capital formation is going to start asking themselves a whole lot of questions like, what are we doing? Because of the change in the new federal tax law, those jurisdictions with lower business property tax rates will be able to leverage their competitive advantage. Tax jurisdictions that are liberal with granting exemptions will reap the lion's share of new capital formation. The population of both Shreveport and Caddo Parish has actually decreased by more than 2% in the past 8 years. Louisiana, on the other hand, has grown by more than 3%, not much behind the national average. How can the number 3 city in the state be shrinking? People go where they can find jobs. Investment in manufacturing machinery comes with a requirement for workers. Our investment activity is good for Shreveport and Caddo. Fewer jobs available in Caddo for skilled workers depress the price of labor. That might be good for an employee of labor in the short run, but it is a terrible idea for Caddo Parish. We don't want Caddo to slip further behind in the race to modernize. I am asking for a unanimous vote in favor of 100% tax exemption for 5 years. It will take a unanimous vote to send the world the strongest message. Caddo is open for business. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, remind everybody, please, your cell phone, if you have them, please turn them off, disarm them at this time. Mr. Settle, John Settle.
John Settle. My home address is 4 Tealwood, Shreveport. My office has been in Bossier since 1996. Interesting that I got in the mail today the 2017 annual report of the Greater Bossier Economic Development Foundation. Very interesting that Sabre Industries announces a 50-job expansion in Bossier City, a $1.6 million capital investment that will create 50 new direct jobs, and also, according to this, 13 or more indirect jobs. The Bossier Economic Development Foundation worked hard to authorize the ITEP exemption for this expansion in Bossier. It's what I said Tuesday. We can hang out the sign, we want you in Caddo, or they can do like I do every day, leave Shreveport and drive over to Bossier. Not a hard vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Settle. Our next is Damon Humphrey. Is Damon Humphrey present? How you doing, Mr. Humphrey? You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. I'm Damon Humphrey, reside at 8820 Blanchard Fur Road. President Dominic, Commissioner Johnson, who's my commissioner, and all the other commissioners that make up the Caddo Parish Commissioners. I'm standing before you to address the need for the Housing Trust Fund that has been presented by Commissioner Stephen Jackson. I'm the pastor of the St. Luke Missionary Baptist Church. I'm also president of and executive director of the Image Changers nonprofit organization here in Caddo Parish. My hope, my prayers, and my ambition is that the members of the commission will see this proposal, this initiative, as an opportunity for our community to become vibrant again. With all the necessary checks and balances to ensure monies are appropriated according to plan, we will see a change in the city and in this parish. I believe the benefits will be recognized in the private sector, the public sector, the nonprofit sector, and the government sector. So I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you so much. And Scott Martinez, Mr. Martinez. How you doing, Mr. Martinez? You have 3 minutes.
I'm doing well, thank you, sir. Thank you, President Dominic and the rest of the Caddo Commission. I come to you this afternoon in support of Inferno Manufacturing's ITEP application. As I mentioned in the work session earlier in the week, this is the type company we want in Caddo Parish. They pay their employees great living wages. They're able to support themselves, their families. They pay 100% of the health care for their employee. They do a dollar-for-dollar match on a 401k up to 6%. And I look at what they're doing. They've been here since 1922, almost a century, a small family-owned business that are doing the right things. The way they applied for the application was correct under the rules at the time. So everything they've done has been in accordance to the way things should be done. This is the type company we want in Caddo Parish. And I'm glad we're here having that discussion, because if we weren't here, Inferno wouldn't have hired 4 people and bought a machine so they would be able to make things here instead of import them from India. So those are positive things. I commend Together Louisiana in bringing forth dialogue and discussion on this particular subject. With Inferno, which is what we're talking about today, for me, it's a pretty clear choice. This has been discussed extensively over the past several weeks with Inferno in particular. We're talking about year one, which would be the maximum exemption because of depreciation. The cumulative, if every taxing body impacted by this exemption, the total value would be $10,880. Think about that. And I know we had several people stand up earlier today. I think they're actually employees of Inferno, is that correct? So don't think about this in terms of just a company. Think about this in terms of these folks' livelihood. That's what it's about. And again, I'm in support of it. We've heard lots of discussions about economic development. I've been doing economic development 20 years. I know, looking at me, I started as a baby. But I've been doing this for 20 years. I speak to groups and lecture at Texas A&M University and the Trent Lott Center at the University of Southern Mississippi. That's the National Center for Workforce and Economic Development. I do professional education to economic developers, and I see what the trends are nationally. It would be different if Caddo Parish in Louisiana operated in an insular environment, but this is a competitive landscape. There are communities in East Texas and in other parts of Louisiana that would salivate at the opportunity to get 20 jobs like this in their community, that are paying benefits, that are supporting retirement programs. This is a great project for Caddo Parish. It's a great project for North Louisiana, and these are great jobs for the people in this room. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Matthew, is that right? Is he doing that? Mr. Slack, we've heard that you were wagging your tongue, so please don't do that. We're filming all this stuff, so we'd ask you not to do that, please. Someone said you're wagging your tongue. I can't see, but if you're doing that, please don't do that. Okay, sir? Am I wagging my ears? I don't think so. Okay. Our next matter is Mr. Chavez.
Make a motion to suspend the rules to bring the special resolution for Larry Ramsey up above.
Second.
You want to do both of them, and Alexis Talamano to move both of those special resolutions up to the front, is that correct?
I just want to do the one, and nothing against Lex, I love her to death, but they have to get back to school. And that's the only reason I want to bring that up.
Okay, so I have a motion by Commissioner Chavez to move the special recognition regarding Mr. Ramsey. Please vote. And I'm sure that passes. So we will have the resolution there.
And we have our old Commissioner David Cox who's coming up as well with the school members to accept
And when you said old, you got it right.
Right. Old. No. Next we move to special resolution recognition. So moved.
Recognizing and remembering Mr. Larry Raymond Sr.
David, you want to get them up?
Yeah, y'all come on up.
I know we have some of our school board members. I know we have Mr. Ryle, also Mr. Reginald Abrahams, and some other ones. So,
Commissioner Dominic, let me introduce our guest here. This is Reggie Abrams, our board attorney. Keith Burton, chief academic officer. Dr. Bedina Dozart, fellow board member. And Mr. David Cox, friend of the school board. Thank you.
Appreciate you being here today. We'll turn it over to Mr. Hopkins at this time.
In the name and by the authority of the Caddo Parish Commission, resolution of remembrance and respect to the memory of Larry Ramsey Sr. Whereas the Caddo Parish Commission pauses to reflect with sad fondness upon the life and works of former Caddo Parish School Board member Larry Ramsey Sr., whose passing on February 10th, 2018 marked the close of a long and productive life of public service. And whereas Larry Ramsey was born in Mansfield, Louisiana, where he graduated from Mansfield High School, moving on to earn his Bachelor's of Science degree from Northwestern University and Master's of Education from LSU. And whereas that Larry was continuously returned to office by the citizens is indicative of the esteem in which he was held by constituents and colleagues alike. His warm personality and his helpful attitude endeared him to all. His knowledge and open-minded sense of fairness and justice inspired others to seek his counsel. And whereas Larry Ramsey Sr. served with integrity, dedication, and commitment, traits which in every instance impelled him to seek to do the right thing in the service of the children of Caddo Parish. He fiercely worked to guarantee quality school infrastructure, materials, and staffing for District 10, along with every other school district in the parish. He was equally vigilant in his personal life, approaching each day and each situation with reason and knowledge, and guided by an unwavering morality born of a deep and abiding faith in his Creator. Now therefore be it resolved by the Caddo Parish Commission. The Caddo Parish Commission is burdened with a deep and profound sense of loss and sadness upon the passing of its friend Larry Ramsey Sr., and that it will treasure its collective memories of his presence, his contributions, and his big friendly smile. Be it further resolved that the Commission does extend to his wife Janice, sons Larry Jr. and Matthew, and 6 beautiful grandchildren, along with other family members and many friends, its most sincere expressions of sympathy and consolation, with an assurance that the Commission shares their grief and the prayer that they will be comforted by the certainty of the joy and peace that Larry has now found in his eternal home. Signed, Caddo Parish Commission, all 12 commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody can have a seat.
Commissioners,
We'll let our old commissioner
you know, you can get off that
up
old
there,
stuff.
Mr. Cox.
I am a proud 57-year-old man, and it gives me great pleasure to be here today. Janice wanted to send her appreciation for this today. Some people are still grieving the loss we've had. When you talk about Larry, you talk about many things. You talk about leadership. You talk about a person who had time for anybody, whether it be his district or any other district. What Larry did with his time on the school board will never be matched, in my opinion. He was my friend, my mentor. I'm going to miss him. I know the school board will miss him, and we will move forward. Southern Hills will miss him because he did that district proud, whether it be Southwood, Ridgewood, or any of the elementary schools. Southwood today is a proud high school with programs that are there because of Larry Ramsey. Southwood right now is doing work that 15 years ago never would have been thought of. Now, Larry would rather see, and this was spoken at the funeral the other day, he'd rather see an A on the report card than a football or baseball or basketball in their hand, because that A will take them a whole lot further in life. We'll carry on without him, but we will miss him, and we appreciate what y'all did today. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else?
Larry Ramsey was my mentor on the school board. When I first came on, he befriended me and sort of gave me the education. We rode together to all the conventions and spent a lot of time together. I'd like to tell you one little story about Larry Ramsey's dedication. When Jeff Roberts became the principal at Southwood High School, Larry Ramsey befriended him, and they became close friends. And Jeff wanted to do something special for that high school because of the Southwood Cowboys. So Larry called me one day, and he says, "You live in the country, and don't you have some old buildings on your place?" I said, "Well, yeah, I do." He says, "What are you going to do with them?" I said, "They're just in the woods." He says, "My principal wants some of that wood." And I said, "Well, okay," I didn't know what for. So the next thing I know, the principal and a couple of people showed up at my house, and they went out in the woods and they tore myriads of lumber off those buildings. And about 2 months later, before school started, he had totally redecorated the Southwood office in a cowboy scheme with rough oak saddles and an old window out of that building. That's how dedicated Larry was and how much he loved Southwood High School. And we as friends and as members of the school board are going to miss him dearly. He was a great fellow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Larry was a God-sent person. He was like a godfather for most of the members on the board, and he gave and left more than he took with him. Thank you.
Thank y'all. Commissioner Bowman, do you have something?
I just wanted to say, I'm sure it'll be missed, but Mr. Cox, it's great seeing you, and It's always a blessing to have you, and I know if you're working anything with that area, and of course with Commissioner Chavez, it's going to be great.
Thank you, sir. And y'all are doing a good job. Mr. Chavez, I couldn't ask for a better person to take my spot. You've
Yeah.
done an excellent job since you've been here, so.
Thank you, David.
One thumb up. You hadn't got the two. You got the one.
You got one.
You still got a little work to do. All right, y'all be good.
He's
Okay,
doing great.
I have a motion by Commissioner Chavez and seconded by the chair to accept this resolution. We can accept it by acclamation if there's no objection. I see none. So if you'll make that mark in the minutes.
So move.
And Mr. Clerk, we'll move on to our next item.
Go back into
Right.
We want to go back to this.
Have a motion by
Make a
Commissioner Johnson, seconded by Commissioner Chavez to go back into regular session. That will also be by acclamation if there is no objection. So we are back into regular session. Mr. Clerk?
We'll go for the visitors. Mr. Patrick Johnson, President, CEO, PCJ Consultants Incorporated.
Good afternoon, Court. My name is Patrick Johnson. I am with PCJ Consultants Inc. I'm the president and CEO. We're a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. We're based out of Houston, Texas. However, we do business across the nation, thus partly why we're here. In brief, am I timed or?
You're not limited to, I think it's 15 minutes?
15 minutes.
Okay, so I'll be.
So you have
Doesn't
to.
mean you have to take the full.
I'll be briefer than the 15 minutes. Thank you.
He says he'll be terse.
We're a project management company, and under our banner, we also are a developer. And as a developer, what we do primarily focus on right now is being able to provide funding for municipal projects. And not just funding at comparable tax exempt rates. If we did a project today, that project rate would be 3.75. Historically, we have done this for the past 50 years, working with one of the most affluent financial institutions in the nation, which is Zions Bank. They are our primary placeholder and marketeer for such financing. We provide funding for projects such as affordable housing, student housing, permanent supportive housing, senior housing, veteran housing. It can be for a university, it can be for a development district, it can be for a city, a parish, or a county, anywhere in this nation. And we've done this across the nation, inclusive of Department of Defense, inclusive of Brown University, inclusive of county jails, inclusive of independent school districts. In this 15 minutes time that I've given, I want to keep it at a high level, just to present that these are some of the things that we are able to do, and this is what we have done. And I'll dive into the presentation, and we're going to skip around a little bit because I won't use all of the 15 minutes. Funding municipal projects. This mechanism is applicable through cities, parish, county, college, university, port authority, housing authority, independent school district, approved development districts. So this is my greeting that says it indeed is a pleasure to have our opportunity to present our qualification and proposal for consideration, which is not particularly a proposal. What it is a statement of qualification. In this statement of qualification, we exemplify and identify projects that we have done and currently have funding for. That is inclusive of affordable housing developments, seniors, veterans, low-income families, permanent supportive housing, and higher education institutions, and independent school districts. Again, I myself am a veteran and service-disabled veteran-owned business. I am in cooperation with Diversified Municipal Funding. The president and owner, Joe Vaughn, also is a veteran as well. Joe has been doing this business literally for over 50+ years. I want to thank you for the time I've been given to do this presentation. PCJ Consulting has been designated as an authorized agent of Diversified Municipal Finance Corporation. As such, I am presenting you the following information that outlines a method to rapidly, effectively provide 100% of funds needed to fund municipal projects. We're going to skip over to a what we recommend and why scenario. PCJ Consulting assesses that the best value offering that we can propose to clients is the approach outlined. This approach requires no financial undertaking on behalf of client tenant prior to accepting fund proposal. So you get it to review a lease agreement, all the documents prior to any type of commitments to be vetted. We'll skip down to the interest charged on the recovered costs based on tax-exempt rates available within the past 30 to 45 days prior to the funding are set at the timeline of the transaction is placed before the authority's board of directors for approval. Rates are based on comparable municipal revenue bonds. If you would go out for a revenue bond, this would be the rate that you would get with us as well. And so if we were to, if it were being done today, the level of amortization rate would be at 3.5%. Since the lease certificates are usually placed with a single institutional investor, the issue is not scaled, nor is net interest charge calculated. The lease balance is amortized just as though it were a mortgage. Many financial advisors and counselors are unaware that under certain circumstances delineated by the IRS, a private company such as Diversified Municipal Finance can issue tax-exempt financing instruments. Elizabeth Jick of Zion's Bank, Boston, and their bond counsel has been our primary marketeer of our lease participation certificates for over 30 years. And now I am going to just give a brief synopsis of the company profiles and projects that we've participated in or provided funding for in the past. Project management. PCJ is a project management company that operates in 4 concentrated market sectors: construction, power generation, energy, and telecommunication. PCJ Consultants is proud to be a certified service-disabled veteran-owned small business that serves clients in a capacity of developer, general contractor, CMAR, project and program management. Our service delivery platform is structured to provide a comprehensive solution for clients with national and international project requirements. A dedicated account executive will account as the single point of contact for specific clients and project scopes in an effort to minimize risk while increasing value add to ensure a consistent level of service delivered. Local expertise is provided and coordinated in tandem with affiliated industry experts via subcontractor partnerships, professional consultants, and necessary resources required to achieve a successful delivered project. The services we provide are general contractor, construction management, project management, developer, design and master planning, engineering, structure, mechanical, and civil. Our recent project list consists of colleges, churches, airports, independent school districts, universities, and residents. Diversified municipal finance. Diversified municipal finance is based out of Indiana. The president is Joe Vaughn. Education background, Ohio State University, agricultural engineering, architectural engineering degree. Have a MBA banking from Northwest University. Registered professional engineer, Ohio and Indiana, contract license, licensed explosive and demolition contractor, real estate broker, veteran-owned business. Professional experience, 50-plus years in real estate development and lease purchase financing. Diversified Municipal Finance was founded in 1962 to demonstrate to a local school board that a new elementary school could be built at less cost using a turnkey lease purchase program rather than the traditional method of acquiring classroom facilities. A sealed bid was prepared, and when the bids were opened, the Diversified Municipal Finance proposed costs of construction and resulting costs of financing saved the school corporation several hundred thousands of dollars over the lifetime of facilities. From this experience and lessons over the years, Mr. Vaughn, through his company, has developed techniques needed to provide the best in development process for any project a government entity might require. Projects are inclusive of hospital projects. Marion County Health and Hospital Corporation, Indiana. Acute Care Emergency and Trauma Center, Burns Center Surgical Facility. Winoma Memorial Hospital, Indiana. Indianapolis. Westview Osteopathic Center, Indiana. Pearland Community Hospital, Pearland, Texas. Evaluated project, secured necessary financing. Watley General Hospital, Texarkana, Arkansas. Liberty County Community Hospital, Hinesville, Georgia. University projects are inclusive of Ohio State University dormitory renovation, Ohio State Employee Daycare Center, Ohio State Airport hangar project, Brown University dormitory renovation, Savannah State College dormitory, Indiana University owned and operated private dormitory, Purdue University owned and operated private dormitory, Butler University dormitory, Grambling State University dormitory. Military and airport projects are inclusive of Bachelor Office Quarters, Fort Knox, Kentucky, Senior Enlisted Men's Quarters, Fort Knox, Kentucky, Trainees Dormitory, Fort Benning, Georgia, Enlisted Men's Dormitory, Fort Stewart, Georgia, Army Reserve Center, Ottawa, Iowa, Air Force and City of Columbus Airport Development Project, Navy and City of Northridge Airport Development Project, Navy and City of Orlando Airport and Development Project. Other housing projects are inclusive of Mediterranean Manors Condominium, Governor Square, Florida, condominiums and single-family homes, Sycamore Gardens Apartments, apartment complex, Arlington Gardens apartment complex, Housing for the Elderly, Indianapolis Housing Authority, 2 projects, Mount Zion Apartments, 501c3 sponsored apartment, 2 projects, Southeast Side Community Development, 501c3 sponsored apartments, Alpha and Omega 501c3 sponsored apartment, 2 projects, Housing for the Elderly, Cincinnati Housing Authority, 2 projects, Governor Square, Virginia, condominiums and single-family homes, over 1,700 other multifamily units developed in various cities that funding at tax-exempt rates have been provided for. Government projects are inclusive of Eagle Creek Air Park, Indiana's Airport Authority, Mount Comfort Airport, Indiana's Airport Authority, DeKalb, Illinois Airport Hangar Projects, City of DeKalb, 2 projects, Greenwood Airport Hangar Project, City of Greenwood, Vincent Airport Hangar Project, City of Venice, municipal marina, City of Venus, a municipal marina for the City of Hammond, municipal marina for the City of Alton, a municipal marina for the City of Dundon, a municipal marina, City of Clearwater, community park and campground, Pinellas County, detention center, New County, Texas, the detention center, Bent County, Colorado, detention center, Owen County, Georgia, county jails in Texas, as well as Indiana, high school, Howard County, Indiana, grade school, Mooresville, Indiana. Banking and financial references are inclusive of Zions Bank, Boston, Massachusetts, underwriter and placement agent, Fifth and Third Bank, corporate banking, Huntington Bank, our trustee bank, and Bank of New York is trustee bank, working with diversified municipal finance. Legal counsel, inclusive of Kent Frandens, corporate counsel, Lebanon, Indiana, Christopher Jordan, out of Dallas, Texas. This is a letter presented from Zion Bank in June of 2017. The letter in short says, for the past 30 years, I have funded numerous and varied projects for Joe with confidence that I can state that his knowledge of financing market and his diligent approach to financing structure will result in a project that can be readily funded. He has in-depth knowledge of both the taxable and tax-exempt market. I look forward to working with him on many additional projects in the future. For those parties who may not be aware of Zion's First National Bank was established over 135 years ago and is a subsidiary of Zion's Bank Corporation, a publicly traded financial holding company whose common stock is traded on the NASDAQ under the symbol ZION, Zion. Zion's Bank Corporation has 8 banking subsidiaries that operate branches in 10 western states: Amegy Bank of Texas, California Bank and Trust, National Bank of Arizona, Nevada State Bank, Vector Bank, Colorado and New Mexico, the Commerce Bank of Oregon, the Commerce Bank of Washington, and Zion's First National Bank, Utah and Idaho. The bank has significant experience in arranging financing for transactions nationwide. Elizabeth Jack.
You about wrapped up. I think it's been close to 15 minutes.
I want to thank you for the time given.
Okay, hang on one second. We do have Commissioner Cawthorn wants to ask some questions, and I know he wants to give some information on this matter.
Yes, I want to thank Mr. Johnson for appearing before us today. About a week ago, Commissioner Jackson and I had a conference call with Mr. Johnson, Mr. Williams, and Mr. Vaughn, his partner. And as we review or consider the Housing Trust Fund, we wanted to consider and bring to the table, other opportunities or other funding sources that may be available. The financing that these guys do is kind of nuanced. It isn't, from our meeting earlier, it's a little nuanced. It's going to need some vetting and review. But I would like for Mr. Johnson, in the most terse manner as possible, to kind of explain the synergy that exists in terms of creating a project, your role, Zion's role, and the benefit to the end user, which in this case would be Caddo Parish.
Okay. Our role as a developer, we understand that in order for a project to be funded by Zion, there needs to be a project identified. In order to identify that project wholeheartedly, there needs to be preliminary plans to be able to get to a guaranteed max price from a contractor. We help facilitate that to where there's no cost to the owner, to the potential owner. So there's no cost to the owner up front to ascertain if he's able to do a project. Let's take housing project, since that's what we talked about specifically. What we're able to offer in a housing project is that we would do the preliminary plans, develop the costs, be able to offer 100% of the funding for the project. Under this lease agreement, we would fund a reserve. That reserve would also allow us to have a clause to where there is no financial obligation of debt service to the entity and owner. We're able to provide tax-exempt funding at 3.7% if we've done it today, which is historically, we did a CRA cost recovery and a pro forma on a sample project of 200 units. Using our method, the housing authority would receive $56,000 a month, a year, at the end of the year, with no financial obligation, 100% of the funding provided. They haven't came out of their pocket for a dime. And they have 200 units for citizens newly constructed. They're able to pick the location. If it is property that they own, they can donate it. If it is a location that they desire, we would fund the acquisition of the land, the design, the construction, and the engineering. The authority could have the option to pick a management company or use their own individuals for management to manage the facility. The project will be incumbent and available for permanent supportive services to render aid necessary to those citizens that would live in that facility or at those locations. It could be multifamily or single family housing. And here's the highlighted benefits to the program. It is off-ledger financing. It is also no penalty for early repayment, i.e. that $56,000 net above debt service would be able to be placed back towards the service, the debt service, so that it is rendered repaid quicker. The value add is a shortened schedule and cost savings to the end user and to the tenant in comparison to a conventional developer. We would not receive any revenue profit throughout the life of the project. We would turn it over to you. It would be your asset, a profit-generating asset in the performer that we've created and been able to display so far.
Now we have Commissioner Chavez on the board.
Sure. Thank you, Vice Chair. Patrick, thank you for coming, and I know you mentioned you guys are a veteran-owned business, so thank you for that. Quick question. As I heard you say that you guys would go to Zion to gather the funds, is Zion is another substitute company of you guys, or what?
Oh,
who
no.
is that?
No, Zion's Bank is, if you would, on the level of a Chase or a Bank of America. They actually, most people are familiar with Amergy Bank in the area. They own Amergy Bank and probably 6 other subsidiaries across the nation.
Okay, so what I gathered from your speech, if you guys have identified a project that's built and it's incumbent, like for instance, we set up this housing trust fund, you guys can go out and get the funding needed to launch this, so
No.
that it's not on Caddo Parish to fund?
No, it is, we fund municipal supported projects.
So if we set it up, you guys will fund it?
No, we fund municipal supported projects, meaning if you want to do 200 units of housing, real clear and concise, you could have 200 units designed, built, and 100% funded.
By whom?
By us, by Zion's Bank, with no financial obligation to you.
All right, and pardon me for this, because that kind of sounds like what I just asked. So we're supporting this, we're setting up the trust fund, and you guys are going to that bank, Zion, to get the funding.
We
How
would,
are we
we would not fund a trust. we would have a lease with the municipality, be it a city, a parish, a county,
So you
a,
can't
even
fund-
even
you
a
can't
even
fund
a
this trust.
development district, or a we can have an agreement with them, but we would not fund a REIT, or we would not fund a trust.
Okay.
We would fund a project.
I'm just
And
trying
that-
to understand
Mr.
how this is germane to the
Well,
trust
let me-
fund if you guys can't
I
fund the
think,
trust
let me
fund.
be, sort of clarify. I think what Commissioner Cawthorn was trying to convey is, and what Mr. Johnson is trying to articulate is, if there was a project, let's say the DDA, which is a quasi-public entity, wanted to do something and they wanted to utilize the Housing Trust Fund, the Housing Trust Fund could make an allocation to the DDA. They would also fund whatever project it is. They would not send any funding to the Housing Authority. It's about leveraging, collaborating, and partnering. But this is not a mechanism to have them come put any money in the trust fund. You'll get lost. We'll all get off base, and we'll be here all day if we try to figure that out, that piece out. So that's what, this is not to get them to put any money in the trust fund.
Right.
He answered my question. That cleared it up.
Per the
I'll yield to
conversation
the
that
chair.
we've had previously, if the objective is to build 200 homes, why, we're saying there's an alternative to what to achieve what you're trying to do with a tremendous less amount of cost to you.
That's a conversation that you have to have with the developer. We're not the developer.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Yes,
That's
more than
what
one.
confuses folks.
Atkins.
Thank you, Court, for his time.
Hold on one second.
Atkins on the board.
Well, I was just going to suggest that perhaps there's many questions that would need to be asked and answered
Sure.
to properly assess this situation. I might propose that we take this into another venue.
Right.
in the
Exactly.
future.
And I totally agree, it needs to be in the committee. All right, thank you. Is it Mr. Johnson, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for coming today and appreciate your presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, have a good day.
You as well. Take care.
Okay, we're moving on to our next item, Mr. Clerk.
Next, we have the Shreveport City Marshal Charlie Caldwell. Information relative to active shooters in schools.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Good evening, brother.
Thank you all for having us here today. Myself and my assistant and PIO, Jonathan Ponder. Actually, we're here to ask for some assistance or some leeway. We work in close proximity with the Caddo Parish Sheriff's Office, and we want to know how we can, get into the school system and start working with the individuals in the Caddo Parish schools and getting the training, standard training, that national training for the school systems, and that's mostly used today by the FBI, which is the alert. Let me enlighten you on a little bit about it. An active shooter, what is an active shooter event? An active shooter event, it involves one or more persons engaged in killing or attempting to kill multiple people in an area occupied by multiple or unrelated individuals. Alert, what is alert? And that's ALERRT. It stands for Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training. It is at Texas State University. It was created in 2002. It is founded by state and federal grants. That's what it's funded by. What are we teaching? We're teaching the public the civilian response to active shooting events, which is CRAZE, by alert. What is CRAZE? CRAZE is designed and built on the Avoid, Deny, and Defend, ADD acronym, strategies developed by Alert in 2004. It provides strategies, guidance, and a proven plan for survival in an active shooter event. Topics includes the history and prevalence of active shooter events, civilian response options, medical issues, considerations for conducting drills, the national average for police officers arriving time in an active shooter event is 3 minutes. That is amazingly fast in law enforcement, for law enforcement standards. It is also a long time if you're in that actual active shooting event. Therefore, that means our best bet is reducing fatalities is proven by civilian response, individuals acting and knowing how to act and react to these events. Armed guards, SROs, law enforcement officers, and lockdowns are all great methods. However, they are not foolproof. So therefore, the public needs to know what to do when the active shooter event occurs, who has been trained by Alert in the active shooting situations. More than 105,000 officers across the nation have been trained by Alert operations and tactics to provide an active shooter events training. In March of 2013, the FBI announced that Alert is the national standard through which they are training their agents. Mississippi, Oklahoma, North Carolina, Iowa, Alabama, Louisiana, and South Carolina are among the first states to train and adopt the Alert program or curriculum as their state standard in active shooter response. Other states are moving forward with this and their standards. And you may ask, why the Marshal's Office? Our office maintain obligations is the court and security. That's what we do. We provide protection, amongst other things. Conduct threat assessments of other facilities. Security, not only for the judges, but employees and the citizens that enter our court's house. The majority of the deputies who are teaching the CRAZE in my office are certified through the Marshal Service training and held at Flexi, and is taught by the U.S. Marshal Service. And we have new deputies, several that have been to St. Marcos and have been trained by Texas State University in the CRAZE program. And we want and are asking the Caddo Parish Commission to help assist us to get us in the schools to have the program straight across the board, so it's no confusion in teaching of the CRAZE and keeping our children safe, and assisting the parents as well, having the parents know what's going on as well at the same time.
Thank you. My first, question would be, to get into the school system, I don't know if you, approached Dr. Gorey or Mr. Murray, who's head of the security.
I've texted Dr. Gorey. I haven't had a response.
And of course, that's the school board, so I don't know what all we can do, but that was, my comments. Let's see. Mr. Chavez, you're up.
Thank you, Chairman. Marshal Caldwell, I do thank you for reaching out and volunteering to come down here and speak to us today. I know with recent events nationally, a lot of people are on edge, and I've had a lot of my constituents call me and ask me, what are we doing about school shooters and active shooters? So I'm glad to see that our local law enforcement are already trained in reaching out and trying to prepare a plan. And obviously with you working together with the sheriff or the local police chief, I do hope that we get something in place for the city of Shreveport within the school. So thank you for coming down here.
We don't ever want to, our tactics aren't to scare anybody or anything, but, we have received texts and different things like that, but evidently they're from upstate, but coming down here to Shreveport of an individual, it's supposed to be on the school campuses around, I guess, in this area, but my deputies will be securing certain areas along with Caddo and Shreveport Police to assure, to try to, keep a hand or be close in the vicinity if, in fact, something does happen.
I thank you for that. And I think maybe it would be beneficial to speak on. I've had a lot of people that talked about maybe veterans are getting their own guns to go to the schools and go protect our children. I do not think that that's the answer. So I'd like to just maybe get your opinion and maybe let them know that, hey, we do have trained professionals here that
Exactly.
are looking to handle this.
Exactly.
Thank you, Marshal Caldwell.
Yes.
And Commissioner Johnson, Lewis Johnson it is.
Thank you, Mr. President. Marshal Caldwell, I wanted to welcome you and thank you for coming.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate your presentation on today. And I think that safety is certainly a concern for our entire community.
Definitely.
So there's always a concern. I think everyone embraces that, especially with the climate that we find ourselves in. And this may or may not be the forum for that, but that which you are proposing as relates to active shooter and going in and doing the training and making those systems safer, is that a joint venture, or are we talking city marshal or is it a joint venture, or how would that,
Well,
how do you see that happening?
Well, I've spoken with the sheriff, and matter of fact, I was at one of his events yesterday where he spoke, and he allowed me to speak to the crowd as well, and get with them, and so I offered my, assistance in that, and I got a lot of response from the school board because a lot of individuals that were there they worked for the school board that were teachers and et cetera. So I passed out brochures, which same brochure that all of you all have on avoid, not deny, and defend for the CRAZE program, and letting them know that we're implementing this free of charge. No charge to the churches, no charge to the schools, no charge to whatever establishment that they would have us to present it on. But we would do a PowerPoint presentation along with some footage on reenactments on active shooting events, and also do a practical exercise with my deputies and other individuals that will come in and do the actual scenario of active shooting situation, just to show them how real it is.
And Commissioner Lyndon Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Marshall Caldwell.
Yes, sir.
I think the route that you should take with this, whether it be a joint venture with you and the sheriff and the city, Shreveport Police, is basically get with the school board members.
Yes.
Get on their agenda, go to the meeting, and then have it as a presentation first, and then have one of the school board members to sponsor that to bring you into the school system.
Yes, sir.
But
yes, sir.
Sounds like a good plan, and I mean, you can't have too much training for
That's right.
some kind of situation like that.
I agree.
And a lot of people think, well, that'll never happen here, but we see now all over across the United States.
It's happening everywhere. It's
and
God
so
forbid it
the more
hasn't
people are
happened
trained
here.
and the more people know what to do and
Exactly.
what not to do,
That's right.
benefits everyone.
That's right. I mean, regardless of whether you have kids in school or not, and I have a daughter in high school, so it's very detrimental and very dear to my heart, and I'm sure a lot of you all have young people in school. So, a lot of individuals don't take those types of steps until it actually happens. But we're trying to be proactive and, prevent it before it happens. At least alert individuals before it happens. That's our goal as law enforcement, to protect, the citizens and the individuals, in our districts and around the world.
Thank you, Marshall Caldwell. Thank you for coming today. Appreciate your presentation.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, we'll get back to our next special resolution.
Special resolution of appreciation to Miss Alexa Talamo, former investigative reporter with Shreveport Times.
So moved.
A motion by Commissioner Middleton.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Atkins. Are we going to,
Miss
read this?
Talamo was not able to come today. If you want to approve it, we'll make it part of the minutes. If she wants to come back at another meeting, we can do it, or we can just send it to her.
just please vote?
That passes, sir.
Okay.
Next, we move to adopt regular session minutes from February the 8th.
So moved. Second.
I have Commissioner Lyndon Johnson on board.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to suspend the rules to do the public hearing and final passage for ordinance 5751 and resolution 12.
Second.
Hold on 1 second. Public hearing number 5741, and which one?
5751 of 2018 and resolution 12.
Which one is resolution 12? Is that the?
Inferno.
Inferno? Okay, so I got a motion, substitute motion by Commissioner Johnson, to suspend the rules regarding the public hearing of 5751 and resolution number 12. Please vote.
I'm not sure what we're doing.
Just to suspend the rules to vote on it.
Yeah, it's to hear the public hearing, I think.
Public hearing and then the
Okay, at this time, we'll have the public hearing on ordinance number 5751. Do you need to read that or anything, Tom?
This public hearing on ordinance 5751, amending Article 3 of Chapter 19 of the Code of Ordinances relative to the Edward E. Jones Housing Trust Fund, to provide, establish the fund, and provide therefore to provide for application and consideration for grants thereunder.
Okay, we have a public hearing on ordinance number 5751 regarding the E. Edward Jones Housing Trust Fund. Is there anybody who wishes to speak in favor of that ordinance? These are speaking in favor.
I think Candace was here, Mr. Chair. Candace Higginbotham.
Is Candace here?
No, there she
Yeah,
is
yeah.
right there.
Candace, are you speaking in favor of this ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, you can come up in just a minute, okay? John, you're speaking in favor? Go ahead.
I really have questions, so I'm not.
We can't, remember this is a public hearing, we can't communicate, questions come when we'll vote. This is just for the public hearing, for those that speak in favor right now, and then we're gonna have ones that want to speak against the ordinance.
Okay, I'll wait.
Okay, so, Ms. Higginbottom, I know you've written want to speak under public comments, but this would be the time to speak if you're here to talk about the Housing Trust Fund, which you have indicated on your card. So if you'll come up, ma'am. And John, we'll give you a chance to speak in a minute. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak in favor of this ordinance? Okay, come on up, ma'am. You don't have to give us your address, just state your name in the microphone.
Certainly. My name is Candace Higginbotham. I reside at 255 Gladstone Boulevard, zip code 71104. I'm a lifelong Shreveport resident. I lived in Baton Rouge for 10 years, but this has always been my family home. And I would like to speak in favor of the proposed Housing Trust Fund for a number of reasons. I'm sure you are aware of this information, but I just want to briefly give you information from the latest census data from American Community Survey, which estimates a population of 248,551, households of 96,592. The median household income is $37,104. We have 26.7% poverty. 34.1% of children in Caddo Parish live in poverty. Of the housing units, which are approximately 96,532 in Caddo Parish, 58.5% are owner-occupied, which are considered the home ownership rate, which is actually pretty good. Renter-occupied are 41.5%. However, of owner-occupied units, 23.6% are what are considered cost burdened, which means that they're having to spend more than 30% of their monthly income for housing. For renters, that percentage of cost burdened is 54.9%. Overall for the parish, it is 38%. Of the housing units built or existing in Caddo Parish currently, 44.7 of them were built pre-1970, which means they likely have lead-based paint, which is, of course, of significant risk to children. For the one-year estimate from the 2016 American Community Survey, there were residential building permits in Caddo Parish of 259. For Bossier Parish, it was 604. We are behind in private investment for any number of reasons, of which I'm sure you are well aware of many facets of that argument. However, one of the things that is not disputable is that we have a severe shortage of housing for median income and low income residents. People who are working 2 jobs are still cost burdened in efforts to purchase a home, and as well for rental, those that receive no sort of subsidy. There are long waiting lists for those who apply for subsidies. That hasn't changed in a long time. It is not uncommon in other communities. There are more housing housing construction is typically on the higher end. There's a higher I'm sorry, the word just escapes me. Developers who are building housing. It doesn't cost much more to build.
Hang on a second.
We don't
have to have an extension because
we
she's
don't
not
need to
3
extend.
minutes.
This is a public hearing.
Yeah.
I don't know how many other speakers they are going to have.
It's limited to 15.
They've got 15 minutes total.
And that's why I asked if there was anybody else speaking in favor, and no one said anything. So go ahead.
There were several others, but I guess they had to leave.
Yeah, some other folks.
That's okay. That's okay, Outlander. Go ahead, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
There's a much higher profit margin in building high-end housing, even though the cost is not that different. So it's not surprising that we see the housing development in recent years has been largely targeting that market. We've actually got a glut of it. Realtors will tell you that houses which sell for $250,000 or less are much more likely to have short-term times on the market. We have working families who cannot afford a home because we don't have the housing stock in this market that we need to support them. A housing trust fund has been used in numerous other cities across the country, and I'm sure that information is easily available. What it does is it incentivizes private sector developers to come in and build housing and meet needs that are not being met by the natural market forces in your own community. This has been proven in numerous markets. It's been successful in numerous markets. Please give it a chance in Shreveport, in Caddo Parish. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Higginbotham. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
Okay,
Mr.
is there
President.
anybody else, hang on, is there anybody else that wishes to speak in favor of this ordinance?
We already did.
Okay. Is there anybody who wishes to speak?
Well, may I have a personal privilege real quick?
Well, this is public hearing.
Well, what I was going to ask is, since we're under who all are in favor, if there are folks who were here who did not want to speak but just want to be acknowledged, if we could have just allowed them to stand at this time.
All right, if you're in favor of this ordinance, please stand
And
up.
do not want to speak, because there are people here who are in favor but don't want to speak. Just wanted to make sure that we at least acknowledge them. And Lynn, wave your hand, we see you. But just wanted to make sure from a visual perspective that there were folks at least acknowledged. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Now, is there anybody here who wishes to speak against this ordinance? Again, this is a public hearing.
My name's John Settle for Tillwood. To show you how old I am, I actually served on the board of the Neighborhood Housing Service back in the old days of Queensboro, which probably tells you maybe before some people's time. So I'm very familiar with programs to assist in housing. I also was on the board of Security National Bank, so I am familiar with the issue. I'm opposed to the ordinance before you because they're inconsistent. If you will look at an ordinance that you've already passed, I think, 1973, which says the purposes of the Housing Commission, it says, make recommendations to Parish Commission to the awarding of grants for from the Housing Trust Fund. So you've authorized the commission that's set up to make grants for housing. The ordinance that you're today, 1974, 75, 76, et cetera, 1974 says the fund shall be a revolving loan fund. It doesn't talk about grants. I think you want to have your ordinances consistent. Another concern I have is that there's no definition of low-income residents. Neighborhood Housing Service had a definition, Section 8 has a definition, and I think your ordinance should be tied to some index. I'm also opposed to the ordinance because of some very loose language in 1977, Section 1977, that says it shall be funded with the interest income from one or more of the parish funds which may legally be used for this purpose. I don't know if that means the $37 million or whatever is in the reserve fund or whatever. I really think that you want to have an ordinance that kind of ties it all together and doesn't have loose language like this. If it's going to be funded by interest on the reserve fund, I don't know, that's a lot of money. If it's going to be interest on something else. So I think the ordinance just needs to be clarified a little bit more, because you're starting off with operating ordinances that are inconsistent, and they have a lot of inconsistent language or vague language. And even lastly, you say it should be funded $2,000 per year from the Economic Development Fund starting this year. I think that the budget's already been passed for 2018, and that money may have been spent. So if I have to say a choice, I'm in favor of this in theory, but your ordinance, I believe, needs to be tightened up so that once this thing gets rolling, you don't have a lot of discussion in between on what should be happening and not should be happening. Thank you.
Mr. Settle.
Thank you.
Okay, now Todd, I'll turn it back to you.
This time we'll close the public hearing on 5751.
Okay.
And then we're going to move to ordinance for final passage, 5751. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Ordinance for final passage, ordinance number 5751 of 2018.
I move for adoption.
Second. Motion is made by Commissioner Jackson, seconded by Commissioner Lynn to adopt ordinance number 5751. Commissioner Linda Johnson, you're on board.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to make a substitute motion to section 19-77 dealing with funding, to replace funding to be funded with the interest income from one or more of the parish funds which legally be used for this purpose, to utilize remaining funds.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
To utilize remaining funds from past projects which are undedicated up to $400,000.
Second.
Okay, so I have a substitute motion made by Commissioner Lyndon Johnson, seconded by Commissioner Jackson. Just paraphrasing what you said was to change the language regarding the funding, so it will not come out of interest, but it will be coming out of unused portions of other projects.
That was remaining.
Such as one you and I talked about a while ago. which-
Yes.
And up to $400,000.
Up to $400,000.
For, I guess, just this year?
For the 3 years.
For the 3 years?
Yeah, it would be spread out over the 3 years.
Okay, for 3 years, so it'll be limited to $400,000.
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Commissioner Adkins?
Thank you. I'll speak in general on the topic, and generally, although I understand this is a well-intended motion, or well-intended ordinance, and I recognize that there is a need for additional housing in the parish. I don't debate those issues. However, I like to take a very strict interpretation of the parish charter, and although some would say if they took a more liberal, not an inappropriately liberal view, but a more liberal view, they might say, well, quality of life is part of our mission or our charter, and housing is part of quality of life. Well, I recognize that position, but I like to stick to a very strict interpretation of the charter, which confines us to very strict areas of investment and activity. And to me, a housing trust is not part of that charter. I prefer to leave housing to the private sector. I know that there are deficiencies, but perhaps the private sector can work to improve those. There's the private sector and there's the nonprofit sector. And the more money we channel through government, the less money that may be available for the nonprofit side to do their work. So I would be opposed to any resolution that funds a housing trust fund. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Commissioner Lynn?
Yes. In 2010, we funded Alcyon to the tune of $500,000, and I was one of the 2 dissenting votes in that, and I was highly doubtful in it, and I voted against it in spite of a story that I want to share with you. That 28 years ago, I purchased a commercial building, renovated it, and did it very slowly and had it paid off. After it was paid off, I was trying to get a finish loan so that I could close it out. The building was worth 3 times more the amount that I was asking to borrow against it, and I went to all of the banks in town. None of them would loan me money. Now, my credit rating was somewhere around 780. It's not that good anymore, but then my credit rating was impeccable. I'm trying to get credit from the banks. The banks won't loan me money. I can go to predatory lenders, and they're chomping at the bit to loan me money. And so I'm stuck. And so I said, well, I'm just going to keep on going along. I'd owned the property for 8 years, and I said, I'll just slowly pay this as I go along. And a guardian angel came up to me, and they said, Matthew, how much money do you want? I gave them the number, which was fairly high in my book, and they wrote me a check. And they said, knock it out. Of course, they've been paid back, and all that's water under the bridge. A lot of people aren't going to have that guardian angel that comes to them. And the banks aren't in the business of loaning money. And the predatory lenders are just out to take your stuff and get all the interest on top of it. And so there needs to be a catch net in there somewhere. In 2010, I voted against Alcyon receiving $500,000 because I thought it was just going to be a giveaway where we handed people money and we never saw it come back. And you can ask Erica. I called Erica. First I called her every 3 months, then I called her every 6 months, and then I'd call her about every 8 months, and then about once a year. Are those people paying this money back? And every time the answer was yes. And so you look at people that are completely capable of getting a loan from a bank, but the banks don't do that really. And then you look at people that are predatory, that want to give these loans out, and we can't do business with them because you just can't. So there needs to be a mechanism for people that don't have a guardian angel. And this is it. This is a payback. This isn't a giveaway. This isn't something free. This is something where somebody is almost there and all they need is a little bit of help. The parish has a lot of money in the bank. The parish is hoarding money, and it is not the government's job to hoard money. And the Caddo Parish Commission is hoarding money, and if we can't provide economic incentive to people that need economic incentive, then we need to write everybody in the parish a check and give this money back to the citizens, which is who it belongs to. That's all.
Well, okay, I'm on the board. I have a total, first of all, I don't think we're hoarding money. We did have a windfall, and we have money in our reserve trust fund, and we have an ordinance set up that money is supposed to be used for, emergency situations. We do have positive balance and something like the Public Works Fund, but those funds that are being paid by the people in rural Caddo Parish, not the people of the city of Shreveport, that are dedicated and cannot be used for certain things that can be only used for roads and streets. So I don't agree with that assessment. The second thing, Erica, just to talk about Lyndon's motion, that is a legitimate possible motion. The way he made it, is that, I guess you and Donna both.
Yes, sir.
Y'all understand it, y'all be able to figure that out, what he's saying, because he and I talked about the fact that in a few minutes we're going to have a motion come up to pay $50,000 for that Tyson water system, but there was money left over, so obviously that money that's going to be left over would go to the Housing Trust Fund and any other unused. Now,
you all usually cancel projects.
Yes.
Transfer those monies back. In this case, I'm hearing that we want to do those projects that have been completed and monies remaining that are dedicated. You want to up to $400,000 use those monies towards this.
that have been completed and unused. Is that pretty much correct?
Yeah, whenever I get on the board.
Okay. And I just want to piggyback on a couple things that John says. When we first brought this up, there was not supposed to be any parish money used. Commissioner Jackson and I talked. He said talked about some seed money, and there are some changes. And obviously, I would much rather we use the money that Commissioner Johnson is saying use versus the interest. I really don't like using the interest, but I'm still not in favor of that for several different reasons. I know that Bonnie Moore's kind of doing some of the stuff that's same and similar. And we talked about this in length before, so I will not be voting in favor of it. But if this passes, I would much rather see it passed under Commissioner Johnson's motion versus the original motion. So our next person on board is Lyndon Johnson.
Yes. The purpose of the substitute motion is this money has already been allocated to some projects. And so basically what we're doing is recycling this money into another project and not taking anything away from any of the funds that we already have. The interest from the different funds, it was kind of fuzzy, and it would have been a financial nightmare for our finance department. So this makes it a lot cleaner, that then all they have to do is go and look at projects that are closed out, that there was remaining funds, and then transfer those funds over to the housing trust fund.
And to make one other thing clear, and just this is to Commissioner Jackson, I would like you to answer this. These funds would be paid back. They are eventually loans, and it would come back to the parish.
It's set up as a revolving loan fund. I mean,
I just want the public to know that. So. All right, Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, Chair. I think you just touched on what my question was about to be, but I want to verify through finance that this is truly a loan and not a grant or a forgiveness, that if somebody was to borrow funds to build or do development, they had to pay these back. These are not forgivable grants. Is this correct?
That's how it's stated in the ordinance.
Okay. Because I know it was worded that way initially. So, and I do like Johnson's substitute. This is obviously a tough one, because we have this is not our job to get into a housing trust fund. It's not. Obviously, there are a lot of people in our parish that need housing.
Yes.
And I don't think it's our job as the government to set it up and constantly house the people. I think it's our job at the commission to help build the infrastructure and help entice businesses to come here in industry, to grow and allow people to have a job, a well-paying job. Thank you, Inferno, for doing such. And you have guys that can afford a house. So it's obviously a tough situation what we're sitting here. I'm going to yield the floor to these next three questions, and we'll go from there.
I have one thing I just wanted to clear up with Lyndon and may save some time. And I know the answer to this, I believe, but the question I had was, is Lyndon Johnson motion proposing a total of $400,000 or $400,000 a year for 3 years, a total of $1.2 million? It's my understanding it'll be a total of $400,000 over the 3 years.
No, my motion was to replace the part on the interest only, to utilize $400,000, up to $400,000. It did not talk about the additional trust fund will be funded annually with the $200,000 from economic development, which is additional $200,000 for the next 3 years. So once you put the $200,000 for the 3 years and the $400,000 over the 3 years, that's only $1 million for 3 years, over 3 years.
So it's $400,000 a year?
No. It's $400,000 plus the $600,000 of the 3 years covering. So that's $1 million over the 3 years. That's it.
So it's a $200,000 a year, every year out of economic development, and up to $400,000
over the 3 years.
Over the 3 years, so a total of $1 million.
$1 million.
Okay. That answer your question? Okay, Commissioner Bowman?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I'll be brief. I just wanted to say that I know some things aren't our job to do, and a lot of times we have lately taken a different step and approach, and I think that approach has been sometimes we have to do what we have to do. When the city wasn't able to finish the bridge, we helped with that, correct, Dr. Wilson? 25 years ago, we didn't have a riverboat, so we couldn't have revenues for there to be an NGO fund to give grants. Now we're able to do that. And so we have just a myriad of things that we stepped outside to do, including police cars. But all those things were necessary for our citizens. And sometimes, I think you have to rule with business, but you also have to rule with a heart too when you're able to do certain things. And I think this is one of those opportunities, especially being vetted with administration and our attorneys, that this could be something that could be very good for our citizens and those who are often disenfranchised and never have an opportunity to have a seat at the table. So I will be voting in support of the substitute that Commissioner Johnson just presented.
And Commissioner Lewis Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was asking clarity to Commissioner Johnson in that I understood it to be $400,000 over the 3-year period. It's what
to
I
replace the interest only with the 400,000. So instead of pulling interest for 3 years, we'll utilize remaining project money
Up to 400,000.
up to 400,000 over the 3-year period.
understand.
So not 400,000 each year, but 400,000 total over 3 years.
I can appreciate that, but I think that, of course, I think I'm on record as having concerns with the wording of the interest being committed to that in that respect. I understand that, and that was one of my concerns, and what the total would have amounted to with the interest as it was initially were my two concerns.
The interest could have been anything over a 3-year period.
I understand that, but there was a reasonable ballpark as to what we would have projected. I think that's pretty safe, which puts it, I'm trying to see the difference numerically between what we were doing numbers-wise then and what it is now. I think it's pretty much the same in that respect.
I think it's actually maybe a little bit more, but I'm fine with that.
Yeah, it's hard really to tell because
Right.
the interest could go up, could go
Or down.
down.
Okay.
I mean, you just forecasting the interest for 3
Well, I
years.
understand. I know.
So this is just
I know we did not know
guaranteed.
that absolute,
Right.
in that respect.
This is just guaranteed up to 400,000.
Okay, Commissioner Vice President Cawthorn, you have not spoken yet. So.
Okay, thanks. I have always been in favor of the housing trust in concept as a entity. I've always been troubled by using the interest of the reserve fund because I know logistically and from an accounting system it's going to be a nightmare. Typically, when you do that, you need more of a laddered portfolio. But having said that, I want to also remind people sitting around this horseshoe that once you got the trust fund set up, that may exist the possibility you may not need $50,000, $75,000. You may need some soft cost money, but you may not need all of this money. This is a leveraging mechanism. And so just like we invited the people today, there are several entities out there. Once we get up and rolling and they understand what we're doing, we will be afforded the opportunity to be able to leverage our housing trust fund to bring partners in to partner with us. And so my commitment to Mr. Commissioner Jackson is that I will definitely continue to interview and vet people who came here today because I see this more as a leveraging mechanism. I know that the dollars that's being committed in Commissioner Johnson's amendment kind of unnerved some of my fellow commissioners, but I think it's a good cause. I think we can manage it in a prudent fashion if we're dedicated to seeking partners for the funding mechanism. Thanks.
And our next speaker will be Commissioner Jackson.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I call for the question on the motion.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Jackson and second by Commissioner Lyndon Johnson to call for the question. If there's no other discussion, please vote on calling for the question. Does that pass, Todd? I can't see.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so the question's been called. So once again, we're going to be voting for Commissioner Lyndon Johnson's supplemental motion, which will be to spend $200,000 for the next 3 years out of economic development, a total of $600,000.
It's actually an amendment to the ordinance.
Okay, amendment to the ordinance. Just trying to get everything clear. A total of $200,000 a year for the Economic Development Fund, plus up to $400,000 total over the 3-year period, which would basically mean $1 million. Is that correct?
Yes.
And point of clarification, we still, Attorney Frazier, Eric, we still have to come back and make appropriating ordinances. So this is not the last time.
Yeah, each year.
So each year this still will have to be appropriated.
Approved. Have to be approved.
Thank you.
Okay. Please vote on the amendment. Damn thing is in the way. So this is voting on the amendment.
Amendment fails, 6-6.
Okay, now we're going back to the original motion. Okay, we'll go back to the original motion to approve the ordinance. Please vote. This is voting on the original motion to take the funds out of the reserve trust fund and interest as was originally proposed by Commissioner Jackson. Please vote.
And that fails 6-5.
Just a question, why isn't it coming up on the?
We got a glitch today, and
Okay.
so it's not throwing it over.
Okay. All right, Mr. Clerk, moving on. I guess you go back to adopt the regular session minutes, is that correct?
No, I think we've still got
Resolution
12 to
12.
do, resolution.
Okay, my gosh.
We move to resolution number 12, approving Inferno Manufacturing participation in industrial tax exemption program.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Chavez, seconded by Commissioner Lynn Cawthorn. There's no one on the board. Please vote. This is the motion to approve the Inferno resolution, okay? I can't. Approving Inferno Manufacturing for participation in the industrial tax exemption program. If you're in favor of this, please vote.
Does it say at the percentage as well?
It's in the,
It's in the actual resolution.
Open for business.
Passes 11-0.
Mr. Organic, congratulations. All right, next item.
Move
Now
that we
we
go
move
back to the
back.
regular session.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Linda Johnson, seconded by Commissioner Chavez to go back into regular session. I see no objection. That will be, we'll go back into regular session by acclamation. Now we're back to their adopt the regular session minutes from February 8th. Am I correct?
And if you'd like to also, at the same time, adopt the special session minutes, we could do that.
So moved.
I got a motion by Commissioner John Atkins and seconded by who? The chair to adopt the regular session minutes of February 8, 2018, and also to adopt the special session minutes of February 5th regarding the alcohol beverage hearing. Please vote. Oh. Todd, I voted yes. I accidentally pressed no. I don't have any room.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I can't reach up there.
Pass 11-0.
Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, now we move to public hearing on ordinances. Ordinance number 5753 of 2018, an ordinance amending the budget of estimate revenues and expenditures for the capital outlay fund, provided appropriation of $50,000 for the village of Odessa to make repairs to the Tyson water system.
Okay, I declare this public hearing open. Is there anybody who wishes to speak in favor of this ordinance? Is there anybody who wishes to speak against this ordinance? There being none, I declare this public hearing on ordinance number 5753 closed. Moving to our next item.
We move to ordinance for final passage, ordinance number 5752, to authorize the lease of flood acquisition property located 595 Tier Road. This was delayed from February 8th.
Okay.
So moved.
This is moved by Commissioner Atkins, seconded by Commissioner Middleton. Is there any discussion on this motion? I can't see it on the board.
There you go.
Please vote. And that passes. Next item.
Next, we move to ordinance number 5753, ordinance amending the budget of estimate revenues and expenditures for capital outlay fund, provided appropriation of $50,000 for the village. of
Moved by the
Odessa.
chair. Second. Seconded by Commissioner Middleton. Please vote.
Someone's on the board.
Commissioner Bowman.
Oh, I thought I saw.
Commissioner Lynn.
And so this, the donation of $50,000 to Rodessa, this is similar to when we gave $500,000 to the city of Greenwood, or was it $1 million to the city of Greenwood for economic development to increase the property value and to help job growth?
I mean, I guess you can say that. I mean, to make a long story short, the Tyson Water District Ken, can you come up, sir? Because we've been working on this for several years. We have a low-income water. It's not even a public entity. It's just called the Tyson Water System. It's 20 homes.
25 residents.
25 residents, all
off of
low
Tyson Road.
income, being run by two elderly ladies who are in their 80s who cannot continue to maintain this system. Rodessa, we have been working with them to try to get them to hook up with the water system. They finally agreed to it. Had an engineering report. There's going to be about $50,000 to bring the water system up to, I guess, standard where the village will feel comfortable and able to take over this system. If we do not take it over, it's going to continue. If they do not take it over, and we do not make this appropriation, and we've been working with the state, what's going to end up happening is these little ladies are going to pass away. They're going to quit running this. You know, when you have a water system, you have to have an operator. These people are doing the billing, and it's just too much for these two little old ladies. If we don't get this done now, it's going to come back and the state's going to be on us.
How is this money going to be repaid? Is this a loan?
No.
So this is not a loan. This is a grant or a gift.
It's $50,000 to upgrade the water system, allow the village of Odessa to take it over, and we will not be repaid this money.
Okay. For how many people?
For 20 people. For 20 homes. I don't know.
25 residences.
Okay. So this wouldn't be that much difference than giving somebody a loan for $2,000, except we won't be getting paid back.
And
correct?
if you give me a second, what I would suggest that don't consider as a loan, consider as an insurance policy. If Tyson Water System goes into defunct, they've already come to us. The DEQ's already come to us. DHH has come to the parish and said, you guys will fall into receivership, and we don't want to be in the water business. It is a rural water system that has a lot of repairs. Obviously, that's what this money is going to go to put it in the system. And what it does is it's going to allow it to transfer over to Rodessa so they can handle the day-to-day operation, the operator, which is a health safety factor there, as well as all the billing that goes along with it. So this is actually kind of an insurance policy that doesn't fall back to our hands.
Would you consider this a quality of life improvement for these people?
No doubt. Okay. No doubt.
And so the parish is helping kind of lift them up a little bit.
No doubt. Yes, sir.
That's what I thought. Thank you. That's all.
Commissioner Jackson?
So this is a privately owned water system right now?
It is currently.
And we're taking it over?
We will not be. The village of Rodessa will be.
Oh, we're giving the village of Rodessa the money?
That's correct.
To take it over?
That's correct.
Will we get this money back?
We will not. The citizens of Caddo Parish along the Tyson Water System will, through a higher quality of water system that they currently have now.
So we're going to improve the quality of life for the citizens of Rodessa?
Not the citizens of Rodessa, the folks in the rural part of the parish along Tyson Road, the 25 homes that are connected to the water system.
But 25 homes?
That's correct.
So where is this in our charter? Do we have an obligation to the village of Rodessa?
It's a parish entity. It's a parish subdivision.
It's a parish. Oh, no more than the city of Shreveport is a parish subdivision. No more than Greenwood is a parish subdivision.
That's correct.
But where in our charter says that we have to deal with Rodessa?
Doesn't say so.
Oh, it doesn't explicitly say it.
Yes,
conservative or liberal.
Yes, sir. But
okay. I just.
Ms. Fraser?
I want to make sure that I point out the inconsistency in what we're doing here. We're picking winners and losers. We had an opportunity to do something here that required folks to pay the funding back. This went through the Long Range Planning Committee, just like the Housing Trust Fund went through the Long Range Planning Committee. This went through the Long Range Planning Committee in February. The Housing Trust Fund went through the Long Range Planning Committee in November of 2017. And we're sitting here acting like we got two different scenarios. Oh, I think the free market ought to work for itself. But you said this is privately owned right now, right? So the free market has failed now, right? Yes or no?
Not my opinion, mate.
Okay. But it's failed. The system has failed, right?
It's heading that way, yes.
Oh, it's getting there. And it needs Caddo Parish to help it out, right? To bridge it over. Yes? Okay. So it's no different than helping the folks who's sitting in MLK in Moortown, who's got houses, roofs falling in. It's no different. It's no different than a developer who might need to come in and lay some asphalt or lay some concrete so they can lay a slab down. It's no different. We'll get tax dollars back when we increase the quality of life. It's no different. But we were guaranteed to get our money back if we set a revolving loan up. Commissioner Cawthorn even pointed out, we may not even have to spend the money. It's no different. We just approved something a minute ago. We're picking winners and losers, and we should not be in the business of picking winners and losers. Thank you.
Attorney Frazier, please.
I'm sorry, I thought that was a legal question, but that wasn't it, so.
Okay.
Pass.
Okay, Commissioner Lewis Johnson.
Thank you. I have a concern in that I'll be speaking to you about, again, Enrolling Ridge, which is in my district.
Sure, yes, sir.
Which is a similar concern. So I'm taking note accordingly as relates to assistance, especially with I'm hearing I understand that it's presently private, will not be once it comes to Odessa. So just for the record, that's a concern, very similar concern that I'll be facing.
Sure. Well, we spoke with on this already in the past, so
yes,
I understand.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Atkins.
I just want to point out there is a key difference in some of these topics we're discussing, and one of the big differences is a difference of scale. You can make a motion. In one case, we're talking about supporting a community with $50,000. In another situation, we're talking about putting $1.2 million at risk. There are no guaranteed loans out there. I've made plenty of loans in my life where I haven't been paid back. So we are talking apples and oranges here. I just want the commission to realize that we're talking apples and oranges. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Mr. Lyndon Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is still time for someone on the prevailing side to reconsider what they did. This is basically the same kind of scenario. It's a little different. This is a grant, whereas the other one was a loan. In the past, we have done the disaster fund and set aside money. That money was not all used up. We've set aside other funds, and that money wasn't all used up. Even the Exxon money was paid back. So there was no risk involved for the parish. Sometimes we have to do things that's hard decisions. We have to make those hard decisions. To help the people outside of Odessa with this, it's helping citizens of Caddo Parish. I mean, that's something that they need to have. To help citizens across the parish on housing is something that they need to have. If we was in a situation where, we was operating in the red, I could see that we don't need to be doing none of this. But we're operating in the black. And the housing fund money is money that's been already appropriated and coming back. This money is part of that same kind of money. It's already been appropriated and it's coming back. Why help one set of people when you can't help the other set? This is about Caddo Parish. It's not about a segment here and a segment over there. It's about the entire parish. Each one of us represent a district. But when we sit around this horseshoe, we're representing Caddo Parish. Caddo Parish is supposed to be our primary focus and goal. Some of our districts are locked into the city of Shreveport, whereas some of us go from Shreveport to outside into small municipalities. But at the same time, we still represent Caddo Parish as a whole. And to be able to say that you turn one project down but then want to fund another project, that's not bad. That's really been a hypocrite. But you know, you have to deal with what you have to deal with in life. And you know, my deal is trying to make things easier and try to make things better for people to want to come to Caddo Parish and live in Caddo Parish, and then for people to be talking outside the Caddo Parish and say, those commissioners are doing things that I wish our police jury or our commission or our council would do. That's the kind of talk I want people to say about us sitting around this horseshoe. But when you do things that hamper one side and then do it on the other side, it doesn't give good conversation. This now turns into a water fountain conversation, a water cooler conversation about what we're doing. And so I would just hope that somebody before the end of the meeting that was on the prevailing side will reconsider your vote and bring it back up. Thank you.
Donna, do you have something?
I did hear one legal question in there, something that I wanted to clear up, and that is basically these are kind of your joint service agreements. The money is not going to the private entity, it's going to the other municipality. So that's when you have the ability to make those kind of agreements. So I did want to make sure that that is clear on the record. That if you have this situation, you've got to be dealing with another municipality or another parish. Here you got Rodessa taking over the system as the municipality. And that's just for this issue. That's all I'm speaking to.
Have you spoken on?
Not yet.
John, have you already spoken on this issue?
I've spoken once.
Commissioner Chavez?
I'll speak briefly because I know you guys want to talk then. I really don't think it's the same as far as, sure, we represent the entire parish and we want to help people. But at what point we have to identify infrastructure and then we have to identify private property. To say that it's our job to help all the housing throughout Caddo Parish, I think it's incorrect because then we're going to get into the gray area where we say, well, you know, we need to help with housing, with cars, with the internet. At what point do we stop when our job is infrastructure and government is typically the water company? Sure, maybe not here in Shreveport. It's the city. It's a different entity, but you have different cities and states and counties all across America where the government is the water and the power. Things like water, clean water, roads, bridges. We're representing the taxpayers to provide that. They're paying taxes for that. It's not necessarily, and I hate to say this, but to provide the tax base to help out other people's houses and cars and internet. What we really need to be doing is how are we going to help Caddo parishes? How are we going to grow industry to create jobs so those people can afford their own beautiful, nice houses and cars and internet? And I think that's how we're going to help the parish a little bit better than saying we can't help these guys with their water infrastructure because we're not helping these guys get a house or a home loan. And I don't want us to get in that back and forth. That's all. I'll yield the floor back to you, Chairman.
Commissioner Bowman?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I just want to say that I agree with Commissioner Chavez on the area. It is our duty to take care of Odessa when situations like this happen, just like I voted for improving the system in Greenwood as well as Blanchard. I just think we're comparing apples to oranges, but in a sense, I understand what the principle is that Commissioner Jackson and Commissioner Johnson is saying. You know, it's starting to happen where it's more often. I mean, we're being technical, yes, but the difference is we have an obligation to do this to Odessa. We're going to do that. The issue is we also had something that seemed to have been in place where we would have gotten. It seemed like it was vetted where we would have received money back in the situation. It seemed like it was a safeguard situation to be able to help the disenfranchised. And that's the part where I have an issue in, not just so much if it was the E. Edward Jones Trust Fund. I just notice a lot of stuff sometimes. It seems like, my mom used to say what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and it doesn't seem to apply all the time. And that's just my observation. Thank you.
Commissioner Atkins?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to point out two items. I hold LBJ in the highest regard, but I did want to point out one misstatement. You stated that this parish is operating in the black. this parish is not operating in the black. This parish is operating in the red. Our expenses exceed our revenue on an annual basis. We are filling that gap with reserves, and those reserves aren't going to be there forever. And then with respect to NGO reserves in particular, the reserves that we're using to fund NGOs, if we load up the NGO budget with $200,000 in additional burden through the housing trust, that's going to either cause us to spend our reserves more rapidly, or it's going to force us to dial back NGO funding to other entities. So I just want to make sure that we were all clear on that. Thank you.
Okay, I was on the board. I don't know how I got taken off, but my motion is to call for the question. Seconded by Commissioner Chavez.
So I don't get to comment.
Bowman.
Huh?
I don't get to comment on this one.
Do what?
Vote no.
I'm sorry?
I said I don't get to comment.
No. Once you call for the question,
Okay.
There's no more
Unless you vote no.
discussion. So please vote.
No.
Question fails.
Okay, so we'll keep discussion. So we need to put, I have Commissioner Lewis Johnson.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. I want to say that I, as much as anyone, or maybe more, appreciate the importance of housing and the importance of us as a body doing those things that we can, where we can, to help our citizens. I think that my background and my position, of course, one does not have the benefit in this setting to discuss every position that as relates to your views and your reasons and that type of thing. But I think that I owe it to my fellow commissioners at some point or another to address what my concerns are, and even before I come to this horseshoe. And out of respect, I do that, and I feel that I have done that. And so those things that are concerns, and this is not the forum for it, but I certainly believe that we are in a community that continues to identify the need to address housing. And I think that there are a number of entities in our community that does that. And I am an encourager and will continue to be an encourager that we as a parish will be mindful to take a part and to assist and be open and commit to that in that respect. But as relates to what my concerns were on this particular initiative, I've identified what those concerns were prior, and so that's what my position is, not to be miscommunicated as a lack of respect or sensitivity or concern as relates to the benefits of assistant housing and a housing trust and the benefits. I very much appreciate those things. So I want to be on record in that respect. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Lyndon Johnson?
Yes. I was going to basically say, even though you're talking about apples and oranges, they're both fruits. So, being that they're both fruits, we can still talk about them together, commingle them together. The housing trust fund, when you start doing, if the developer comes in and wants to build houses, those houses then will be now become tax income for the parish. Because you're not going to be able to build a house for $65,000. A brand new house is going to cost more than that. So if someone talks about tax exemption, okay, yeah, you're going to get some of that. But then at the same time, now you're going to have another house that's on the tax books, then another house. So it will benefit the parish, not only with the loan, but also with tax revenue coming in. So what are we trying to do? Are we trying to just have more people stay in houses, projects, things like that? Or are we trying to get homeowners so that they can become on the tax books? I mean, we're here to bring in income, and we're here to make sure that people have a good quality of life. So just when you say a housing fund doesn't always mean that it's going to be set up as some type of apartment style living. It could also be homes that they will be on the tax books as well. And then you will recoup some of your money back on top of the loan. So just think about that.
Commissioner Middleton?
Thank you. As Commissioner Atkins pointed out earlier, there's nothing in the ordinance. I mean, we're getting back to discussing this 5751 whether we want to or not. It seems like that's what's happening here. But no, I don't see where housing is a requisite for us to be doing. But if you go down further in the ordinances, I think it's 3-13, you can see where we can have emergency ordinances for things such as has to do with public health. And I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to avert from getting into a public health situation, as Ken has pointed out, that if it fails, if that system fails, it's going to come back on us to begin in the long run. So again, and I hate to bring this out because it's going to probably hit the media, is that what I've heard up here is a shell game, money left over from another project, and now we're trying to divert. It's leftover money instead of staying in the general fund. This is the kind of stuff that's going to stand out to these people who are going to be in opposition to our renewal for taxes.
Only if
later
you
here.
continue to.
I'm going to continue on because the horse is out of the gate.
Okay.
And they're as smart as I am, or if not a lot smarter, really. So thank you for bringing that out. And I think that these are the things that will come back and bite us when we're trying to do these renewals for Parks and Recreation, whenever we may bring that on the agenda. So I just think that we're trying to revisit this 5751. I think that's already failed. I don't know why we're going there, why we're trying to attach it as part of this one here at 5753 Village of Odessa. This has to do with the basic needs of water right here. And I know housing is a basic need too, but this is the one that we have to deal with here because this is one that can come back and impact us in a way that could cost us a lot more than $50,000. So if they're able to do a proactive approach on this and go ahead and get it rectified at $50,000 by getting it out off of our hands and puts it up on Rodessa, then I think that's the way we should do, and that's being prudent servants for our people.
Good point.
Thank
Okay. I have no one else on the board.
No, I'm on the board.
I've been on the board a couple times.
I was on before we called.
Hang
for
on
the
one
question.
second. All right, Commissioner Jackson. What
Yeah.
Commissioner Jackson?
I want to be clear. I heard somebody say, Ken, can you come back to the mic because I think we've gotten confused. Tyson Water System Village, is it or is it not a privately owned company?
Tyson Water System is a privately owned company going to be taken over by the Village of Odessa.
So the public government is about to take over a privately owned entity.
That's correct.
Okay, I want to be very clear on that. That's it. Because there are folks up here who are saying that public versus private. This is a privately owned system that is being taken over. So I heard somebody say, we are not getting the business of providing private citizens housing. We are helping facilitating the Village of Rodessa to take over what is currently a privately owned and operated system. Why don't we just let the free market work here? Because what the free market truly believes is what? The survival of the fittest. And if it works, it'll work. And if it'll fail, then what? Let them fail. That's what the free market is all about. The free market says if the business plan that they got don't work, let it fail. But here we are, the government, coming in to facilitate a mechanism where we take a privately owned entity and company and buy them out, essentially, right? Right? Dr. Wilson? Eric?
We're not quite buying them out, sir. We're just transferring their responsibility.
Transferring the assets and responsibilities.
To the
Okay.
township of Odessa.
Okay, but it's gonna cost $50,000 to facilitate that, right?
Yes, sir. That's what the
Okay.
engineering costs.
Okay. So I want to make sure, as Commissioner Johnson said, we're talking apples and oranges. Everything is a fruit up here. And what we've done is chosen winners and losers today. I also heard us say that we're operating at a deficit. We operating at a deficit? I don't see no red in that budget book. Now, what we're choosing to do is spend down our debt services. We're choosing to spend our debt services down with that money. That's not something that we have to do. So to say that we're spending more than we're taking in is a fallacy. What is happening is the commission body and the administration comes to us every year with a set of amendments and says, sweep these funds and we're going to apply it to spend down our debt services. So this notion that we in the red somehow, I don't know where that's popping up from. So I just wanted to make sure that we're clear on the facts and we're clear on everything.
Okay, Commissioner Lynn.
Mr. Ward, in August of 2011, somewhere off of Ellaby Road, if you correct me, it was either Nightingale, Bob White, Nottingham, Bent Tree, or Robson Road, the Caddo Parish Commission paid for a water line to supply all those houses with water. What street was that off of Ellaby?
We did Green. I don't remember anything. Well, it's we did Greenway or Greenbelt off of Overton Brooks, and then there was the side street there that went through there. But we didn't pay for anything. I think it was a 90-10
But
type
didn't
project.
we put all the upfront money up?
We did. I think
Okay,
I
and
think we
didn't
put the
we
money
ask
front
them
up,
to
and
pay us back?
they paid us back. That's
Okay,
correct.
so off of Ellaby Road, the parish gave money to prop up everybody, and then we let them pay us back. Is that correct?
The commission put up the upfront money for construction of a water line, and the citizens paid back, or there was a lien filed against their property. That's correct.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Chavez.
I'm going to yield to Atkins, and then I think we're not allowed to speak anymore because we've all had 2 turns.
He's spoken twice.
I thought he only spoke once. So.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just one quick question to the Director of Finance. Ms. Bryant, does the parish have greater expenditures than it does annual revenue?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
I yield the floor to the
All right. Let's please vote for this ordinance, okay?
Remind me, sir, exactly what we're voting on.
Voting on the ordinance to provide the funding of $50,000 to the Village of Odessa to allow these poor little 84-year-old ladies to quit having to operate this system.
Don't tell them that.
This is
We
exactly
just need
what
to
it
help
is.
them. They need our help. Don't tell them that they're old.
Sound like a bleeding heart.
They don't care. They'll come out here and
They're
tell you.
seasoned.
That passes 9-0.
Okay, let's move to our next item.
Next, move zoning ordinances for introduction. Zoning case P1 18 regards ordinance number 5754 to amend volume 2 of the Code of Ordinances. Parish of Caddo is amended the Caddo Parish Uniform Development Code by amending zoning property located at 1,118 feet south of Pine Hill Road from RMHP residential manufactured home districts to R15 single family residential districts. Zoning case P3 18 in regards to ordinance number 5755 of 2018. Amending the zoning of property located on the north side of Market Street, northwest of Devereaux Road intersection, Caddo Parish from R17 single family residential district to C1 neighborhood commercial district. Next, we move to ordinances for introduction by title. Ordinance number 5756. An ordinance declaring certain adjudicated properties to be surplus and authorize the parish administrator or designee to sell parish Caddo's tax interest in certain surplus adjudicated properties. Next, we need to ratify the minutes from February 20th.
So move.
Got a motion by Commissioner Lynn Cawthorn, second by the chair. Please vote.
What happened to me?
Next item.
No old business, no new business. President's communication committee reports.
Does anybody have anything?
Yeah, we're going to have long range. Donna, when is that?
The Long Range Planning Committee will be meeting the 28th at 1:30, and it will be on the 8th floor.
For the another one of the attorneys for the opiate crisis.
Send us an email, please, so I can get it on my calendar.
I'll send out this committee.
Commissioner Jackson?
Thank you, Todd.
I just wanted to reiterate that on March 24th in Cherokee Park, are those citizens allowed to use Caddo Parish stuff?
Yes,
please help facilitate the cleanup in the bayous over there. I don't know if we could just give them a trash can or something.
A dumpster.
A dumpster or something. Want to thank Kelvin for keeping me updated on the piece there. Want to speak to the issue of just personal politics on this body. I want to appreciate Commissioner Lyndon Johnson for reaching out to me Commissioner Cawthorn for just giving due diligence. What I have found is most folks, instead of just voting against something, just voting on your principles, they try to find and scuttlebutt and find ways to say no. I understand if you don't agree with something in principle, then don't agree, because we're not here to just agree with each other. But what tends to happen is we go above and beyond to try to sow doubt, create confusion, and put things out there that are just misleading and confuse folks. And so when we come down here, there's a whole bunch of misinformation, there's a whole lot of doubt. If I have an issue with somebody's legislation or ordinance, I call them, I ask questions, and I find a way to say yes. I'm one person, and what I appreciate about what Commissioner Lyndon Johnson did today was he provided an alternative. As I told him, I'm only one person. I'm putting out what I think is best. For us to sit back and say do nothing just because we disagree, just say do nothing. Just say I don't want to do it. But don't start talking about is it illegal and is this a shell game and all that other kind of stuff. It's unnecessary. If you disagree with your principle and go on down the road. But to try to demonize and tear it down and make it look like it's something that it's not, it does a disservice to this parish, it does a disservice to the citizens who are out there struggling. I reached out that issue for the Housing Trust Fund. In the last 10 hours, you would think it popped out of, you think it popped out of the sky, fell out of the sky, and found itself on our agenda here today as if it had not been in the Long Range Planning Committee twice, as if it had, and somebody even went so far as to call the family. How low? How low? As if the family had not reached out to me or I had not reached out to them. The family reached out to me last year and asked me, could I rename Laurel Avenue after them? And I told the family that's not within the commission's purview to do. That's a city council issue. However, what I would propose doing is naming a housing trust fund after them. They told me they would get back to me if they had any objections from them. I heard nothing back from them, so I assumed there was no objection from them. But again, to create doubt, and as if I'm trying to mislead somebody or use the late Dr. Jones. I went to a book signing this Saturday for Carolyn N. Jones, the oldest daughter of Dr. Jones. I'm very close with that family. Second oldest daughter of Dr. Edward Jones. I'm very close to that family. I text Chloe at least once a week, granddaughter, Jazz, and all those folks. Let's not engage in personal, petty politics. The name of who was on the ordinance had nothing to do with what was going on down here. It was completely to sow doubt and confusion. Dr. Edward Jones got Galilee City over there. So why not name something honorable after the man who did such a good job with such a similar concept after him? If you have questions about something that I'm doing, reach out to me. Yes, I'm going to respond. Yes, I'm going to get you the information. Yes, if you come to me with some skewed thought, I'm going to push back. Dr. Wilson, I would appreciate it if administration would not get involved in politics, because I do know early on, folks from staff was making phone calls because I had to clear up stuff on that. So please, if there is an issue, call me, sit down, say here's what I think is the best way to do it. But to say to do nothing, if we had told Mr. Organic out there that we can't do nothing for you, there would be plenty of folks out here heaping and hopping and mad, talking about what the folks in Longview are doing. When are we going to start delivering for everybody here? We gave him basically a tax rebate today. That's basically what we gave him, a rebate. Why can we not give a developer an incentive to come in here and do housing development. When companies come in, they don't want to just see downtown. They don't want to just see Long Lake and Southern Trace. They want to know, is MLK doing well? Is Moortown doing well? Is Highland doing well? We are only going to be as strong as our weakest neighborhood is. And heaven forbid somebody make the wrong turn in this community. I don't have meetings in lunchrooms anymore and cafes. You come to a meeting with me, we riding through Allendale, because I want you to see. I cannot go back in 4 years to tell folks all you got was good government. The parish got a AAA bond rate. Our roads out in the parish are paved. It's not sufficient for some folks in this town and in this parish. It's simply not sufficient. And for a lot of us up here, it's not sufficient. And we must deliver for them at all costs. Nobody up here is going to do anything illegal or get over. If you have an alternative, bring it forward. But if you don't have an alternative, don't sit back and just say no. Put your alternative on the table. If your heart is pure and if you're operating in good faith, put your proposal on the table. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. Commissioner Cawthorn?
Okay. Good evening. You know, I say this to Commissioner Jackson. My granddaddy told me one thing in life. You live, fight another day.
Absolutely.
So as long as you got breath in your body, you got to design your heart.
Absolutely.
Keep going for it, brother. Sometime a no vote is just a no for now.
All right.
And maybe on the further review, maybe a yes later.
Absolutely.
But I also got on the mic to, I had a call from our partner, Caddo Council on Aging, the executive director, Monica Wright.
Yeah.
And she wanted to invite commissioners to, I forget the date, but I'll send an email because she was supposed to send March 23rd. She wanted the commissioners to commit to delivering a meal to a senior citizen in their district. And I volunteered everybody around the horseshoe because I couldn't see anyone up here saying no. So I just wanted to remind
March 23rd.
All right. It's March 23rd.
I thought you said 23rd. Commissioner Jackson, do you have that date?
It's either 23rd or the 22nd.
I will send out the email on tomorrow. Thank you.
And Commissioner Lewis Johnson?
Okay, lastly, I want to say thank you to all the people from the city and especially from Caddo Parish that assisted me in my community meeting and my district update. It went exceptionally well. I want to thank administration for coming. I want to thank my fellow commissioners that attended. Thank you for your support. And I very much want to thank the citizens of District 12 for coming out, for voicing their concerns and making their concerns heard. And I would also be remiss, and I know this is not necessarily the place, but at some point I just feel it's necessary to say that I know that we at this horseshoe at sometimes are going to disagree. And we can disagree, and because one disagrees, it does not mean that one does not have a pure heart or that you're not voting in good faith. So if one disagrees, that's going to happen sometime. And when we disagree, it is not personal. It's a simple fact that some does not view the situation or the particular topic the same as others. And the way that we address that is simply with our vote. Simply would be up or down or whatever. So I've heard that, and when we talk about winners and losers, I guess anytime a vote goes forward, that would be the view, if that's the way that we view it. So I think that each person have a responsibility to respect each other and to have the right to vote their conviction, whatever that conviction might be, and to know that it's not personal when one does that. For I know for sure it's not as relates to my position. And I wanted to say that. Thank you, and thank you again, District 12, for their support.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Next matter.
President's report.
I have none. Moving on.
Citizen comments, late arrivals, I have no cards.
I have none. Moving on.
Next, the commission convened into an executive session to discuss litigation.
Do you have a motion to go into executive session
So moved.
to concern litigation with our attorney, our parish administrator, assistant parish administrator, clerk? Who else do we need?
That should be it.
And our our assistant parish attorney?
Yes.
Okay, anybody else? That's it, right? So that motion is made by Commissioner Johnson, correct?
I'd make it, yeah. that's
Okay.
fine.
Second. Okay, motion by Lynn Cawthorn, seconded by Lyndon Johnson.
I'm on the board.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I make a substitute motion that we discuss litigation matters in public. It seems that everything that we discuss in executive session ends to make it out into the public anyway. So my substitute motion is that we would stay in open session to discuss these litigation matters.
Second.
Huh? Do I have a second on that?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second to, by Commissioner Lynn to discuss this matter in open meeting, and Commissioner,
Want me to speak on my motion?
if you want to, yeah.
I just wanted to just point out that it seems that every time we discuss something here in executive session, I don't know if y'all have had this experience, but it seems like the moment we walk out the door, you can almost guarantee that it's being repeated back to you by somebody who was not here. So I just think that instead of giving folks privileged communication, that we give everybody the same privilege that those few people are getting. And in some cases, it's the folks who we're in litigation with. So I just think that it's fair that everybody be privileged to the same information that those select few people are getting.
Commissioner Chavez?
Thank you, Chairman. Donna Frazier, can I get your legal opinion on whether we should or should not do this in open or closed session, please?
I would not recommend an open session. I would recommend doing it in the closed executive session. I think the proper way to handle it, if you have an issue where you think somebody is breaking your privilege of the whole, then the body needs to deal with whomever is breaking that privilege.
Pursuant to our charter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Donna.
And,
Chairman, that's all.
and what she's saying is we have the means and abilities to censor a commissioner if they're going out talking about what's in executive session. Look, you guys know I'm a lawyer, but these are things that have to be done in executive session. Commissioner Jackson, I respect your point. I hope that's just to making a point, because I don't think we need to be discussing this in open meeting. And so I would suggest that we do not pass the substitute motion. We vote on the original motion. So the substitute motion, please vote on at this time. It is to discuss this matter in open meeting. That is a substitute motion.
We're saying vote, do it in.
We need to do an executive session, so
Right.
you'd vote no on this one and vote yes on the other one.
Okay.
That was a long twist of an arm.
Okay, I see a bunch of reds up to I assume it fails.
It carries to, it fails.
Okay,
to do an
so
open
let's
session.
make the original motion to go into executive session. Please vote.
I'll pull a quick one on me while they come up to vote yet.
That passes 8-2.
Okay, Commissioner Lucky, if you'll get everybody out.
Yes, sir. That's been a long meeting. This is I think this might be our record setter.
We had some earlier.
And